Hey, welcome. There's Big John up in the corner. Good day, sir. It is Tuesday, April 9th, and we're taking another step in regards to this settlement that has been created for us out here. So hopefully my computer works for me. Oops, I got to do this. The question has obviously come up. All right, now we fully understand this settlement. And if approved, as my title for the day shows, if approved, then what do we do? What has to come up? So guys, I've been looking at this, studying this, listening to other trainers, coaches, and I've got to tell you that I found something out which is really interesting. We will be doing what we should have been doing since 1995 when the state of Michigan required agency disclosure. So there's really, I'm going to say, nothing new. However, for probably 95% of us, we're going to have to do things that we haven't been doing. So let me just kind of then stroll through what I put together today. There's a process that you're going to follow, and I want to kind of just introduce to you what this process is going to be. So it is lead generation, business development. It's converting then to job interviews, converting for job interviews. And that's a term that we've got to get used to. I've been using it for years, and it seems that either I'm becoming really popular and I just don't know it, or everybody else has just understood that really what we're doing when it comes to buyers is we're going to be interviewing for the job of selling their home. Let me rephrase that. Selling them a home. That kind of sounds the same thing, doesn't it? Because we interview in working with a seller. Because of the settlements, if approved mid-July, it will be required that we actually interview for the job and end up, just like with the seller, getting a signed contract. So this class, by the way, that we're going to be doing will also taking it all the way through to showing properties. And then we'll today just give you some final tips and takeaways. So here's what we know about these settlements. I want to just reiterate the simplicity of what has happened. We cannot offer compensation. It cannot be advertised on the MLS. We cannot, and this might be new for some of you, the settlement will not allow for the creation of another mechanism to advertise to all realtors compensation is being offered by a listing broker. We're not going to be able to do that. So participating in something that a private company put together, we're not going to be able to do that. It can be on broker and agent websites. It can be on our broker site. It can be on our individual agent sites as to what we're offering. Okay? That's another thing to be able to keep out there. The question is, can it be posted, say, on century21.com or coldwellbanker.com or Zillow? I don't think it's going to be able to based upon what I've read on this, because that would be a national, basically, MLS, because they took that away from us. So I don't foresee that that's going to be able to happen. What else do we know? Now, this is the second real change. The buyer and the broker / salesperson must sign an agreement. So the buyer goes, well, I don't want to sign one. I can't work with you. Why not? Because it's going to be required by law if these settlements are approved in the courts. So buyer, sorry, it's required. Okay? And here's the key. It has to be done prior, underline in boldface, prior to showing a property from the MLS. So you've heard me talk about the bureaucrats and the lawyers who made a boatload of money on this as far as lawyers are concerned. They've attacked the MLS. Bottom line, you're just going to treat this real simple. Buyer, I have to have an agreement which is outlining how I get paid, specific amount, be it a percentage of the sale price or a flat amount. It must be specified. Here's the other thing we know because of this. Seller concessions are permissible. So I can put that the seller is offering a 3% seller concession. But we also know it cannot be specifically for the buyer broker compensation, but rather just closing costs. Now, who determines what a closing cost is? The mortgage market. And I can tell you, in talking with a couple of different mortgage people this week, FHA is already having apparently an unwritten rule that says that if a buyer has to pay their compensation to or directly for the buyer broker, they'll treat it separately. Meaning, I need 3%, plus I got to pay the buyer broker's fee, so I build it into the purchase agreement. These mortgage brokers have told me that FHA is already stating they will not treat that the same. So if they were capped at 3, well, they're capped at 3, but they can also put in 3%. And last week I did forward to you a cheat sheet for what financing is available or what financing is allowing you to be able to finance. And in that would be what you'd be able to finance for the buyer broker fee if that's the way it ended up working. So guys, all it is we need to know what are all the possibilities, where can the money come from? And if we keep it simple, we're going to be all set. Now, here's the other thing we know because of this. The buyer broker cannot accept more than the amount pre-negotiated within that buyer representation agreement. So if a seller was offering a bonus or the listing broker was offering a bonus and it was 3%, no, let's just call it 4%. And you signed a contract with the buyer for 3%. You cannot accept more than the 3%. It will not allow that to happen any longer should, again, this be approved come mid-July. So then what do? How do we now, from an aspect of being a salesperson, how do we actually do this? And again, here's where I have found. It's what we should have been doing since 1995. And if you got your license after that, it's what you should have been doing anyway. And let me give you the example to it. So no need to respond, but here's the question. When were you supposed to disclose your agency relationship? Now, you should have that answer in your head already. So as soon as or prior to the exchange of any confidential information. Now, the question is when were we actually doing that? More importantly, the law actually says, prior to the exchange of any confidential information, an agent must disclose in writing. In reality, guys, don't print this anywhere, but y'all know when you were doing it. And I'm going to tell you that at least 80% of us were guilty, most likely, of doing it far too late. Now, we probably did a disclosure verbally, but that's not what the law says. And how many of us even know of someone who got in trouble with the state because they disclosed it when they wrote the offer? Well, this lawsuit was again about transparency. I think even though we have this rule that's going to state that prior to you showing a home, you must have a signed contract, I think there's reality in what the rule is going to state, just like it has with agency disclosure. So don't get overly paranoid with it, but I'm not going to go out and show 5 homes. If I'm showing 5 homes to somebody on the first day, by the way, we're going to get together somewhere and we're going to sign these documents. I already have them, but they need to know, and it's transparency. Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, you will owe me a fee. Okay, so here we go. You got to get the job interview now. Let me simplify. If you have a sphere of influence who calls you up and says, Miss Barbara, we'd like to buy a house. Your first step now is great. Then the first thing that we need to do is to get you pre-approved, because I'm assuming you're going to pay or you're going to get financing unless you're paying cash. Are you? Nope. We're going to get financing. Great. Well, let me get you set up with one of my mortgage partners. I'll have them reach out to you. And then the step after that is let's set an appointment. When was the last time you bought a home? Great. Things have changed since then. So we need to get together. Let me explain to you how the process works, what we need to do by law these days. Is Monday or Tuesday good? I could start out with that way with somebody that I know. But now let's take the situation of somebody called on a property. What we know is they're not likely to buy the property they call on. What do like probably 90% of us do? We just go show the home. Now, do I believe, guys, not in writing, because in writing, what we know is we're supposed to get a signed contract. But do I believe that we're still going to go show the home? Yes. Why are we going to go show that home? Hope we get lucky and sell it. But really, it's about building rapport and a relationship with this buyer so that they would then do a job interview with us so that we can explain the process, asking them to sign a buyer representation agreement. Okay? At an open house, how might that go? Well, we know why we hold open houses. It's to appease the seller. That's tongue in cheek, by the way. Why do we do open houses? To get leads, buyer and seller leads. That's what I'm going for. So I'm holding this open house for that reason. If it's a seller lead, what am I always trying to get? A job interview, an appointment to get there, talk to them about their house, what they're doing, where they want to move, so that I could put that home on the market as a new listing. What if it's a buyer lead at this open house? I want to set an appointment for a job interview to represent them in being able to find a new home. You see, it's now going to be our primary objective is get the appointment for the job interview, not to just get an appointment to go show a home. Because by law, should this be approved, that's what it's all about. So what questions, what I might throw out to buyers at this point, even sellers, are you familiar with the new changes required for realtor and buyer agreements used for buying a home in 2024? Oh, you're kidding. You hadn't heard about any of this. Let's do this. Can we spend 13 minutes together? Let me explain to you what's going on. Yeah, we could do that. You want to do that on Monday or Tuesday, 4 or 5 better. How about, are you familiar with the techniques that I use to help buyers find their new home at the lowest possible price? No. Well, I'd like to interview for the job of helping you find your new home. What would be the best time to show you and get us together to get clarification on everything that you want in your new home, and then I can share our process and learn the changes of these agreements. How about through this, what questions could I answer while I've got them on the phone, or I've got them in front of me at an open house? Well, how long have you been looking for homes? How many have you seen in that time period? How many offers have you made? Now, are they making a lot of offers? Guys, coming up, one of our hot topics, probably soon, very soon, is going to be what clause? The escalation clause. Probably clarifying for you, what is the appraisal guarantee? What if I use those two together? It's coming. But here's what I throw out to people. That's got to be frustrating. By the way, have any of the agents discussed their agency relationship or how they get compensated with you? What's the answer going to be? No. Oh, you're kidding. Well, listen, do you have 11 minutes to discuss these things as we're now required by law to do? Would you say today? Are you familiar with these 11 things that are coming down? Or excuse me, are you familiar with the new rules that are coming down? Well, why don't we do this? Let's take 11 minutes and spend together, and I'll explain what all is due. Okay? And again, I would like to interview for the job of helping you find your new home. What would be the best time for us to get together, clarify on everything that you got coming and what you want in your new home, and then I can share the process and learn what the changes are in these agreements that are now going to be required. Is Monday good or is Tuesday better? So bottom line is, we simply got to ask, okay? So I want you to then look at it, demonstrating value. What's the first part of this interview? You're now going to have to demonstrate your value. So if you've never seen it this way, again, I've been using the term, we're interviewing for the job. I believe that you're going to hear that more and more out of more and more speakers, more and more coaches. You're going to have to articulate your value. My question is, what do you bring to these buyers? Why should they sign a contract with you? Why? Matter of fact, why should I be responsible for seeing that you get compensated? We're going to need to know those. We're going to need to be able to explain the contracts, both the listing, the buying side, title escrow, how the closing works, how we show homes, what's going to happen, what's the full process beginning to end. Oh yeah, who's on your team, by the way? Here, I got a few here. Who's on your team? Who's everyone?
Everyone was Century 21.
Everybody within Century 21, everybody within Coldwell Banker, everyone in the HRC umbrella. But I want you to think, if I said, well, who all's working with you directly?
Oh,
Well, all of those people, but let's break it down to this small group. Who are you really talking about? Do you have an inspector? Title? Mortgage? Do you have electricians? Insurance agents? See, I have this team of people that you get all of them. Okay, so who's on your team? You need to identify that. You're going to want to take a look, and this might be verbiage more than anything, but you're going to share the levels of service and how it is that you get compensated for that service. And then here's just, again, I want to give you some preface for what's coming up when we do this buyer boot camp. I take my business in helping you succeed very seriously. Can I show you the 90 ways that I help my clients identify, negotiate, and ultimately successfully close on their new home? Does it sound like a nice presentation? What are the 90 things that you do to help a buyer? Sounds like we probably are going to need, I can see a few faces on screen here. I'm going to guess that we all need to know, what are these things that we can do? And I can tell you, I got a list of 90 things. Did I get it all by myself? Yeah, I went and found it. I knew that, but look, it's a lot easier to cheat off of somebody else, right? And we can borrow what it is they do. And maybe I don't have 90, maybe I have 80, maybe I have 81, maybe I have 101. But until we sit down and we figure this out for ourselves, we really don't know. Are you familiar with the 24 different terms that I'll be negotiating on your behalf? Did you even know that you negotiate on these things? What those 24 things are? It's one of the things that I'll take and we will be discussing in the buyer boot camp. So here's where I want you to go. You just made a great presentation. Would you like me to represent you and work with you in finding your new home? Yes. Well, here's where then we need to know our value. We need to know how they can pay us. And guys, be prepared to walk away from people who will not compensate you your full compensation. Be prepared to walk away. Be prepared to walk away because there may be people who won't want to sign a contract. And do I believe that there will be agents out there who will violate these rules if this settlement is approved? Yes. I don't work that way. We don't work that way. That's the beauty of our company. There's a very high integrity. So let's not follow, rather let's lead and get everybody doing the same thing. This was some verbiage that I found recently. We'd love to onboard you as a client and provide all of our services to you. What questions do you have about what we do or how we get paid? Well, that's a good question. How do you get paid? Could you do a single party agreement? Yeah. It's like, look, I'm going to go show you one home. You buy this home. Does that sound familiar? If you've been in the business for a while, you've done this with a for sale by owner. It was a one-party agreement. It might have been a simple commission agreement, allowing us to represent the buyer, but the seller agreeing to pay the compensation. Transaction coordinator, but I want you to think about this. So when I wrote this down, I'm going, why would anybody ever say, yeah, I'll pay you, but nope, you can't represent me. You do hear the silliness behind that thought, right? And of course, the other is the exclusive buyer representation. By the way, we're also, when we do this, we're going to take a look at how long. Should I disturb everybody with our discussion this morning? I'll drop it out there. How long should the exclusive buyer representation contract be for? No, you don't have to put that anywhere. A lot of you are right now going 180 days, 6 months. You don't need to acknowledge that, but I know it.
Until they buy a
Now, what
house.
did you just tell me? What's that, Mike?
Until they buy a house.
Until you buy a house.
10 years.
10 years from now, and I'm still under contract, having to represent these people, I want to throw this out to you. If we do the 6 months, what did you just tell me as a buyer? How long is it going to take me to find a house? How many homes could I look at in that time period? And do you really want to work with somebody for 6 months who's a buyer? See, I'm not talking about putting a prospect under contract. I'm talking about putting a buyer under contract. Now, I won't tell you what my thoughts are today, other than it's a lot less than 6 months. But that's what we're going to discuss in the class and the logic behind that. So the question may come up, where do they get the money to pay you? Here's some good dialogue. Well, the first is I'm always going to check to see if the listing broker is offering to pay my compensation. I may say, you know, in the past, we always got our compensation directly from the listing broker. Again, if you've been on with me before, you know, by contract, that's what we did, okay? Next, well, some sellers will offer concessions to help, And you can always build that into the transaction by asking the seller to pay it on your behalf. Is that not something that we've done in the past? Otherwise, let me simplify. I can get it from the listing broker, we can get it from the seller. What's the other? The buyer, of course, could pull it out of their own pocket. But here's that option that we now know may come up. There are mortgage options where it could be financed. So John popped it up here in the chat room, not following the FHA. FHA said, well, let's say that the restraints are you can get 3%. That's the cap that you can get on seller concessions. Yet the seller was not offering compensation. They did not pay the listing broker enough to offer compensation. Therefore, the buyer built it into the transaction by asking for the seller to pay it. FHA said, okay, well, we're not going to look at that as 3 and 3 or 6. There, I get the right number of fingers up. 6% total, because that would be 3% too much in concessions. They're saying they're going to separate those two things. So it's the 3% max concession and treating it as a separate issue that they're not going to have an issue with. Otherwise, if that unwritten rule is accurate, it's just not going to be an issue. Obviously, what do you do whenever you're having difficulty? Have that discussion with the mortgage officer, the mortgage broker that they're going to be working with. Okay? Now, what else do we have with that? Preferably, they've already talked to, because see, we've researched during this time period what their housing needs are, their wants. Financing should be done prior to us actually getting together. So preferably, they've already talked with a lender if they're not paying cash. I'm going to have them describe their dream home to me. There's no issues to a dream home. They can have whatever they want. Money is not an issue. What would you have? And by the way, they don't describe a home like they just won the lottery. They'll still be very much what they want. And I've even had to say, look, doesn't matter. Money's not an issue. What would you want? This is your dream home. Because then I'm going to narrow what they've described to what it is that they need. And it's after that, while we're sitting together in front of the TV, in all of the offices have TVs for you to meet your buyer and pull up in the MLS exactly what it is that they're looking for. If you're good with your Moxie website, you're going to go to your Moxie website and you're going to put a search in for them. Otherwise, we're going to do the auto search in the MLS, but we're doing it together. Okay, let's see. What else are some final thoughts that I can give to you here? And you might want to make sure that you've done a screenshot of this one, because there's some good verbiage here. Now, obviously, guys, this is always being posted to HRC, Agent Development Channel, so you can go back and preview or review this again. But you could send a text. Matter of fact, you could do this today. I might go, hey, Valerie, do you have 2 minutes for a quick business call? Sure, what's up? And you call Valerie. You say, well, what I had is just to find out what questions do you have regarding. Now, right now, you could say regarding the media and what they're pulling out in regards to this settlement with the National Association of Realtors. They might say, well, you might say, well, what have you heard so far about it? Okay, that's just a quick one that you can use right now, because believe me, your people that you know are asking someone. Why not it be you? How about somebody's going to go as a seller, as you can kind of tell, this is where I've got this. They go, well, I don't know. I've heard that I don't need to compensate any longer. Well, you don't, but let me ask you this. When you guys bought your home, you know, it was with me, right? Did you guys pay me? Well, by the way, they're most will realize they didn't put any money out of their pocket. So who paid it? Well, it was the seller. So listen, I'd highly recommend that you pay that forward and consider offering to do the same for the buyers on your home. And then they do this. Well, okay. Okay. Guys, in the end, we're still wanting sellers to pay us compensation of 6% so that we can offer compensation out of 3%. Okay? We still want that. Otherwise, we're going to take a minimum of 3 and we want to be able to offer 3. We believe that is still in the best interest of our clients. So the question comes out is, in the end, if I had a seller who was only willing to compensate me 5, should I take the listing? Yes. We get 3, we offer 2. Well, what if they offered 4? Yes. We get 3, we offer 1. But what if they only want to offer 3? We get 3, and we put 0 out there as an offer of compensation. And by the way, let me clarify this too. How much are we as a company going to charge a buyer? But Darwin, what if we could only get 2.5% from the listing broker? Well, what did we do in the past? But I'll tell you what, here's the thing now. Your buyer knows. They signed an agreement to get you paid 3%. Why not collect the other half? Why not collect the other 0.5%? Contractually, that's what we're allowed to do. So guys, I don't think there was anything out there that I needed to address. That brings an end to another hot topic. Coming out, I will be offering these classes. They will be, the first one is at the end of the month. It's going to start in Lapeer. We'll be in Macomb, Livonia, Troy. We will be in Midland. Actually, we're starting in Midland. I'm sorry. Midland and Fenton. So there'll be 6 locations that you can go to. Gold, you can go to blue. Blue, you can go to gold. It doesn't matter. They're just host sites for these classes. If you go to the online calendar, they're already out there with the locations. Time at this point will be 10 to 4. 10 to 4 is what you want to plan for these. The host offices will be collecting registrations. If you say you're going to be there, I'd ask that you please show up because it is going to be limited. And gang, we're well over 500 agents. And I'm doing this at 60 locations. We can't do 45 people at every location. So don't sign up and then not come. Sign up and come. Commit. If you feel a little bit lost with this, look for those to come up. But they're already on the online calendar. If you're going, what is the online calendar? I would tell you go talk to your manager. Okay? They'll get you the link to be able to get that online calendar. Other than that, that brings the end to another Hot Topic Tuesday. Remind you that next week, I'm going to be coming live from Texas. It's going to look just like this probably. But we're going to have advanced farming techniques with Don Robinson, who's been in this business since, wow, I think 1978, wasn't he? And Don has successfully retired 10 times and went back and started working his farm again. I'm just kidding. That's picking on my friend Don. But Don is literally, I believe he retired twice and has come back, worked his farm again, and does about 3-4 million each time he's done it. How do you do that? It's because of what he did in establishing his farm. And I got to tell you, the other guy is Phil Sini and his daughter Rachel. If you know anything about the Glacier Club, They own it. They probably take about 80% plus of the listings in the Glacier Club. How they do it? By using true farming techniques. They're going to share all those ideas with you next week on the 16th. So join us. Same link now, by the way, for all of our Tuesdays. All the same. But this is going to be the deep dive. So block out your schedule, 12 to noon, and come and hear these guys share their knowledge on that. We'll see you next week. Have a great one. Oh, was there? I'll take. So we'll end it there, but there is a question. Let me pull that up. Maybe there's a couple of them. We'll call that our official ending. Let's see what our chats are here. I do not, okay, that was that one. Okay, Lori, what if the seller says I only paid 70,000, 75,000 when I bought it? Now I'm selling for 225, so realtor fees have been doubled. Yup. So, yeah, let's see. The cost of food has gone up at a restaurant. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm a 20% tipper. Did she get a raise? Probably not. But where she got a raise is in those, and I still tip 20%. So all of the people that I recognize who do that work, I'm still rewarding them. So what? And oh, by the way, 75, 225. So they just made 150,000. All I'm asking for is 3% of that. And by the way, I'd smile if I got a great, Lori, I know you well enough, I could do this. I go, Lori, you just made 150,000. I just want 3% of it. Fair enough? Matter of fact, that's only 4,500. That still leaves you with 145,000. Break it down to the ridiculous. It's an old sales technique. Reduce it to the ridiculous. Was that the only one then? I think I got all the others. Okay, yep. All right, guys, you got it. Have a fantastic week. Enjoy the sunshine. You know, great weather. Go knock on doors. Go talk to people. See ya.